Hello, everyone, and welcome to IoT Marketing's Industry News, live on LinkedIn. We are so glad you could join us today. I'm Tiffany Nielsen, and with me is my co-host, CEO and founder of IoT Marketing, Johannes Beekman. How are you doing today, Johannes?
I'm doing great, Tiffany. How are you?
Excellent. And only a few weeks ago, we held our Connected Food webinar, which was a huge success with 1,280 people in attendance and an amazing panel representing brands such as Walmart, Grocery Shoppy, Harvest, Phobo, to name a few, and also Riot Wireless. It was a great event. Wouldn't you say, Johannes?
Yes, Tiffany. It was a great webinar, and I'm glad that we had the opportunity to present what's going on in the world of food. We covered a lot, and you mentioned them. We started with growing food, covered by Harvest, which is an agri-tech startup, all the way to food delivery. And Walmart, the greatest supermarket chain in the world, was in our webinar, and they have great plans for the food delivery.
And we shared a lot of news before the webinar started, but there was some news that we did not get a chance to share. And the first story is from TechCrunch. And in order to reduce dependency on animals as one of our main food sources, some scientists are looking at precision fermentation. Advances in the technologies have investors increasingly ordering it from the menu and giving compliments to the chef. And this technology, brewing food inside huge fermentation chambers, is not new, especially if you're a beer connoisseur. The precision fermentation technique is similar. It creates the ability to conjure foods of all kinds, such as dairy, honey, and meat alternatives. But what has people in the sector so excited is that this technology could create better quality, more cost effective proteins than their animal based counterparts. Johannes, during the webinar, you talked about brewing hops in space. What do you think of this news?
Well, and you mentioned this already, is the list of fermented food that we commonly know and eat is long. I mean, you're talking about thousands of products here. And just to name a few, sourdough bread uses fermented sourdough, yogurt, sauerkraut, and yes, beer and wine. It's a long list. Second, beer and wine have been around for a long time. Wine was invented 6000 BCE, so it's been around for about 8000. Beer, we've been drinking beer since for 6000 years already. So we know fermented foods. A lot of these food products, they provide health benefits. And in today's world, fermentation is a science, and precision fermentation is big business. So the market for precision fermentation is forecasted to grow at a clip of 48%, and I haven't seen that before. And it will reach $36 billion at the end of this decade. But fermentation is one of the techniques that we use to grow food, and I'd like to give a shout out to somebody else, Ed Curry, and he uses good old-fashioned plant breeding, which is selective breeding of plants to develop specific traits. And what he did is, and he's the creator of the Carolina Reaper chili pepper, which has 2.2 million Scoville heat units. So it's the hottest pepper on earth, which demonstrates that there's still a lot that can be accomplished with this technique. And in summary, food as we know it will keep on changing.
I've actually tried that pepper, Johannes, and it is very, very spicy.
I don't want to go to 2.2 million Scoville. That's way too much for me. But kudos, uh, with that you tried it.
Yes, I definitely will remember it forever. And another story that I mentioned during the Connected Food webinar that I think our audience would find really interesting is about the metaverse. And how is the metaverse involved in our food systems? It's a little out there, but it's interesting. So many of these different fast food chains are entering the metaverse. Panera Bread has the Paneraverse, Wendy's has the Wendy's verse, even Panda Express has the Pandaverse. And Slim Jim and Velveeta are also getting into the metaverse. And some of them are doing it to protect their IP, while other ones have very advantageous goals to use the metaverse. What are your thoughts on this, Johannes? Are you ready to eat some Velveeta cheese in the metaverse, or what are your thoughts?
I may, but Well, ever since Meta, or Facebook as it was called at that time, decided to launch the Metaverse in during one of our webinars, we've been trying to figure out what the multiverse can do and where it will go. Part of what you see, what's happening right now, is basically a defensive strategy because brands need to protect their brand name and they also need to protect it in the multiverse. So, yes, they are buying virtual property and they are creating virtual property. So it totally makes sense, but we're still trying to figure this out.
Thank you, Johannes. And another story is about Chipotle. And Chipotle launched a $50 million venture fund in April that aims to tackle the various challenges in the restaurant sector. Last year, Chipotle invested in self-driving robotics company Neuro as their first investment. And this year, it's piloting Chippy, a tortilla making robot, and that saves time and labor costs. The fast food giant's investment in technologies such as AI and robotics are a larger part of their ultimate plan. And according to CEO Brian Nico, nothing is off the table. And they take a lot of pride in what they're doing, especially when it comes to plant based chorizo. It's pretty interesting. But what are your thoughts on that news, Johannes?
Well, we've touched actually on this particular issue in various webinars, Tiffany, and let me try this angle. So if you look at the current US unemployment rate, which is 3.6%, it's below the natural unemployment rate of 4.4%. So technically, the US is at full employment. And yet, the fast food restaurant industry has a labor shortage, and we know that. But that labor shortage is likely permanent. So what you're seeing is that the fast food industry is on a fast automation and robotization track. The labor shortage does include, for example, food delivery driver shortage. I think it was Pizza Hut, which had an article in the news recently. So yes, several chains are experimenting with robot delivery services, and well, this space is where you will see the fast food industry invest in the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Johannes. And our next story is about a new sensor that detects pesticide residues on fruits and vegetables. A new nanosensor has been developed that could detect pesticide residue on fruits in a matter of minutes. Sounds pretty cool, right, Johannes?
It's really very cool, Tiffany. It's food safety is everybody's concern, whether it's a salmonella infection or trace elements of pesticides. People will get sick either way. So when we can create a small, cheaper nanosensor that can do the work of an expensive cumbersome sensor, as we have them now, that's progress. And this will mean more likely that the new sensor will be more widely deployed. So I think at the end, we will all benefit from this new sensor.
Thanks, Johannes. And the next story is out of Rapid City, South Dakota. And speculation has swirled in cattle country since last month's announcement of a proposed 8,000 head per day beef processing plant in Rapid City, South Dakota. Many question the availability of such large numbers of cattle and or bison in the region. The availability of sufficient labor and housing for the incoming workforce is also going to be a challenge. But many of those same questions are now being asked by Rapid City residents and officials who want more details about the proposed $1.1 billion project. Western Legacy Development Corporation, the company that has proposed to build the new $1.1 billion high-tech meat processing plant in Rapid City, held a meeting on Monday to answer questions and listen to concerns. This would be the world's largest beef packing facility. The proposed facility would cover 1 million square feet and employ 2,500 workers. I mean, what do you think, Johannes? Do you think there are even enough cattle to have this project make sense?
Oh, Tiffany, we have plenty of cattle, so I'm not concerned about the cattle, but I do question the logistics because that means a lot of trailers will have to get on the road and drive all the way to Rapid City. So for the logistics alone, I would think that I would build half a plant in South Dakota and the other half in Kansas simply to create a more reliable logistics stream.
I guess it all goes back to the well known question, where's the beef, right?
Exactly. Where's the beef?
And next, our last food related news story is on 3D printed salmon fillets. And this is expected to reach the US stores in 2023. Revo Foods, a plant based food tech startup, is ready to start stocking grocery store shelves with sustainable seafood. No, it's not seafood caught in the ocean. Instead, Revo Foods has created 3D printed salmon made from plants that is expected to reach the market in 2023. And the company, based in Vienna, currently sells packets of smoked salmon made from pea protein, algae extract, and plant oils to mimic the taste and texture of real fish without the environmental impact. What do you think about that, Johannes?
I think this is a great solution, Tiffany, because as we all know, overfishing is the most serious threat to our oceans. So now we can make a 3D printed vegan salmon fillet that has the same texture and taste as real salmon. And by the way, it also solves another problem because, and we all know that seafood can and does contain a higher amount of heavy metals like arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury. And for example, and this is from the Singapore Food Agency, their advice is to avoid excessive consumption of seafood simply to reduce exposure to heavy metals. So a 3D printed vegan salmon fillet would also solve this problem.
Interesting. Thanks, Johannes. And another 3D printing story as we gear up for our made to order webinar on Thursday, July 28th, is about a US desktop 3D printer manufacturer, Makerbot. And they've recently announced last month their ongoing commitment to make 3D printing accessible for more students with the donation of 3D printers alongside 3D printing materials to several organizations that support low income communities across the United States. Makerbot provides a 3D printing ecosystem for education, offering a full suite of connected hardware and software solutions. Educators who are part of the program will be able to use the 3D printing lesson plans and access the community on Makerbot's Things First platform, and the only ISTE certified 3D printing training program, Makerbot certification. What are your thoughts on that, Johannes?
I think it's a great initiative, Tiffany. And of course, they are promoting 3D printing. And of course, they are promoting STEAM education. But what I like about this article is that the printers are immediately put to very good use because there are, and you may know that there are a lot of robotics competitions going on in elementary, middle, and high school. And they're using various different robots. And of course, they have supply chain issues. So robotic teams are stuck because they can't get the parts that they need to build a robot. So it's great to see that they're using 3D printers to print parts for the robot. But most important of all, with the Makerbot, students from grade K to grade 12 can print lots and lots of very cool stuff.
And our next story is on a major medical breakthrough, as 3D printed bone has been approved for patients in Europe. Serum is providing the first ever commercially available 3D printed bone like implant. Surgeons in Europe can now treat patients with severe facial deformations using MyBone, a first of its kind patient specific 3D printed bone implant. The bone consists of hydroxyapatite, a calcium phosphate, which is the main mineral component of a natural bone. I feel like this is a major breakthrough. What are your thoughts, Johannes?
It is a major breakthrough and a serious major breakthrough, and I'll explain why. So first, this is a patient-specific implant, and so you're basically reconstructing the bone or part of the bone as it was before. And as we know, we are all unique in so many different ways. So that's one problem that is solved. Second, the implant is made of the main mineral component of natural bone, and I'm not going to try to use the word that you mentioned just now, but using that main component of the bone, you cannot get closer to creating a bone. So this is as close as it gets, which is important because replacement implants, and we've been doing them for decades, but sometimes they come with complications, which can vary from rejection of the implant to infection to particle release by the implant. So this breakthrough opens the doorway to a procedure where you can replace a bone, part of a bone, by an identical copy.
And if you're interested in learning more about this, be sure to attend Made to Order, where we have two panelists that are both in bioprinting, and we'll talk more about all of the different possibilities happening through 3D printing and additive manufacturing for bones, medical equipment, all different kinds of printed products. And speaking of previous panelists, Siemens, who has previously appeared in our content, recently announced that they believe that the future of manufacturing is additive. And last month, manufacturing giant Siemens announced it's engaged in early stage research and development with multiple partners, including national laboratories, focusing on U.S. manufacturing innovation to include additive manufacturing, workforce training, and decarbonization. What do you think about that news, Johannes?
I agree. The future of manufacturing is additive. And doing my research, I came across Grandview. Grandview Research, one of the marketing companies. They project that the additive manufacturing market will grow to 75 billion in 2030. So that's a significant size and significant growth. Also, when doing my research, I came across the Deloitte article, and that gives an excellent explanation what's going on and where this market is heading. Because literally, AM additive manufacturing has been around since the mid 80s, so it's been around for a long time already. Which also indicates that in the past decades, several key patents, because patents only last for about 20 years, have expired. And what we're seeing and have seen in the past decade is a wave of new printers put on the market at a much lower price level. So that's basically explains why this market is taking off right now. Then, if you add to that the Additive Manufacturing Forward initiative from the Biden administration that they launched about 2 months ago. So, yes, we'll hear a lot about additive manufacturing in the near future. And it's definitely a great technique. We haven't seen it has multiple different benefits. So, we'll hear more about it.
Thanks, Johannes. And it seems like perfect timing because, according to a recent Bloomberg article, stung by strict COVID-19 lockdowns in Chinese cities and snarled global supply chains, American CEOs are increasingly looking to move production back into the US and Mexico. And also, the Biden administration is also pushing for 3D printing to help lead a resurgence. And President Biden announced Additive Manufacturing Forward, a voluntary compact among the large manufacturers to help smaller US based suppliers increase their use of additive manufacturing. And this is pretty interesting, wouldn't you say, Johannes?
Yeah, it's interesting, Tiffany, but this is an acceleration of the reshoring trend that we noticed at the beginning of the pandemic when we started with this series. And yes, the pandemic is hitting China hard right now, which has a direct impact on the supply chain. Everybody is getting sick of supply chain disruptions. We've been talking about supply chain disruption for a year and a half, almost 2 years already. So yes, it does mean that the supply chains are on the move and that they likely will, portion of it will come back, portion of it will be nearshored going to Mexico. But the supply chain as we know it will change.
And other news that we would like to highlight from previous webinars include this next story, also from Bloomberg. Big tech is forcing carriers to invest in networks. Orange CEO says phone companies want tech giants to share build-out costs. Through the huge growth of internet traffic, big tech is forcing phone companies to invest heavily in improving networks while not helping to meet the cost, said Orange SA CEO Crystal Heidemann. What are your thoughts on that, Johannes?
It's a very interesting story, Tiffany. And yes, why do we all want 5G? Why don't we stick with 3G? The answer is content, more data streaming. So we all want more videos, we want faster streaming, and that includes the carriers because they all make money from data streaming. So yes, the content providers are pushing the carriers to build out the infrastructure. That's what's happening right now. Because for them, more streaming content directly means more revenue. However, at the end of the day, it's the carriers that need to go to the bank to apply for a loan to invest in infrastructure because they own the infrastructure. And they're stuck basically because they cannot afford not to invest in 5G infrastructure because that means that they'll fall behind the competition, and you cannot skip a node like 5G and expect that you can catch up with 6G. So, and on top of that, 6G is going to be worse. So yes, the carriers are not happy. They do make from money from 5G, not to worry, but it is a huge investment because you need much more equipment for 5G than you need for 4G, and there's always a risk. There's nothing in this world goes without risk. So I can understand why they want the content providers to at least bear part of the risk.
And the next story is about Duke Energy Florida expanding its self-healing tech. In 2021, Duke Energy Florida embarked on an innovative technology that can repair itself and reroute power. And this helped Pinellas County residents avoid over 57,600 extended outages, saving over 3 million interruptions. With hurricane and afternoon thunderstorm season beginning to bear down on the area, the smart technology is currently on pace to shatter that record for 2022. Anna Gibbs, Corporate Communications Manager for Duke Energy Florida, compares the self-healing technology to GPS as a simplified way to explain the process. Just as GPS redirects a driver to a more efficient course when encountering an accident or a traffic jam, Duke's system automatically guides the power flow around problems. Very similarly, when our electric system recognizes that, for example, there's a tree that hit a line, then it can automatically reroute how that energy is moving, said Gibbs. So that reduces the number of customers that will experience an outage. And it can reduce the number of customer outages up to 75%. What do you think of that, Johannes?
Well, Tiffany, we're having a heat wave. I think the entire country is in a heat wave, and literally the grid here in Texas is at operating maximum capacity. This is becoming the new normal, and it's becoming the new normal across the country. So, to show you how bad it is right now, Bitcoin miners in Texas are shutting off rigs to reduce the load on the grid. The news article that you mentioned, and you explained also a lot about it. This is real smart grid technology, and technically this is fault location and service restoration technology. So yes, if the capacitor on top of a utility pole pops, the grid automatically knows location and reroutes to limit the number of houses affected. So yes, this is, and of course, it can send the truck to the exact utility pole that needs to be fixed. So smart grid is also becoming the new normal, and we need it because, yeah, like I said, hurricane season is coming. We need the grid to be as smart as we can make it.
Thank you, Johannes. And our last story comes as a bit of a warning. According to CNN Business San Francisco, for much of the past decade, tech companies have showered their corporate employees with money and lavish perks to attract and retain talent in a hyper-competitive industry. That dynamic only kicked into overdrive over the past couple of years amid the pandemic-fueled boom for tech products and services. The hiring was off the charts. Paying salaries were probably too high or out of range, where companies would hire 4 or 5 people for a sales position when they really only needed 2. And that was according to Bill Makerbot, founder of San Francisco-based recruitment firm Talent House. But the situation has started to cool as the tech industry and the broader economy have been hit by the perfect storm of inflation, rising interest rates, fears of recession, and Russia's war in Ukraine. A wave of tech companies that had been aggressively hiring, from Netflix to Coinbase, have announced layoffs in recent weeks. Many others are also moving to cut costs, with Uber, Lyft, Snap, Twitter, and Apple all planning to slow or pause hiring. Harley Lippman, CEO of technology staffing firm Genesis 10, said one trend that he sees starting to emerge is greater tendency to hire contractors rather than permanent employees because of the flexibility it provides companies. Work still has to get done, he said. Whatever form it ultimately takes, it's clear that tech employees will have to brace for a significant course of correction across the industry. Well, it's a good thing that we offer marketing services as a contractor, but this could have a negative impact on the tech industry overall. What are your thoughts on this, Johannes?
Well, this is a perfect storm, if you like, but let me explain it this way. So one, the tech industry always goes through these cycles, and the semiconductor industry has a cycle of about two and a half years, but Silicon Valley has them too. So Silicon Valley has reinvented itself over and over again. Three, there is a massive labor shortage. We've highlighted that in several webinars. Four, cities like Austin are benefiting from the current working from home trend, and that's also that will also stay. So we'll see that continuing. So that means that you don't have to move to California to work in Silicon Valley or for a Silicon Valley company, because in all honesty, housing prices in the entire country have gone up, but in the valley they have really skyrocketed. And then number five, it's still not clear whether we are in a recession, or whether we're heading to a recession, or whether we have a soft landing. So yes, companies are also preparing for that. It is a perfect storm, but at the same time, it's also time for a new model. So I think this is Silicon Valley reinventing itself and reinventing its business model again.
Thank you, Johannes. And I think that about wraps things up. So thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to check out that Connected Food replay, which is available on our website, and that is iotmktg.com. You can also register for our upcoming webinars. We've got Made to Order on July 28th, also the Future of Connectivity in August, and we have our Summit of Things event coming up in October, which is an all-day virtual summit. We've got a great platform we're going to be using that's very experiential. I think everyone will enjoy a lot. And we also have our third annual Industry Insights IoT Awards coming up this December. So be sure to check out all of those. And Johannes, do you have anything you want to say about our upcoming events?
Well, we have a great lineup. We have a great upcoming event. We did do a lot of searches for what platform we're going to use, and I think we found a great one. And yes, it's more an experiential platform, so stay tuned, try it out. It's going to be great, and we have a lot of great stuff in the pipeline for everybody who's on our channel.
And be sure to register for all of our upcoming events. You can also read more about these stories on our blog, all available at iotmktg.com. We also offer PR, marketing, production, white label webinars, podcast services. If there's anything that you need, we are the marketing contractor you've been looking for. Get in touch with us. And last but not least, be sure to join our new Industry Insights webinars community, where you can dive deeper into these topics, watch all of our content on demand, and also chat in our forums. And that's at iiwcommunity.com. Any final thought, Johannes?
Definitely join the community. We are building out, we are producing a lot of content. This news broadcast is a great addition, and we'll come up with other news. So stay tuned, stay in touch, and join the community.
All right. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you on July 28th at Made to Order.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Transformative approaches to industrial production are bringing digital flexibility and efficiency to manufacturing, which is paving the way for custom on-demand printing, streamlined logistics, and rapid prototyping. How will advancements in 3D printing disrupt the traditional ways we order and acquire goods? Find out on Thursday, July 28th, as Industry Insights webinars and IoT marketing present Made to Order. The live virtual event will bring together a panel of experts and industry leaders for a powerful discussion on how 3D printing has evolved and the new opportunities it is creating. Discussion topics include printed products and applications, benefits of additive manufacturing, authenticity challenges for printed goods, and strategies for driving ROI with 3D printing. Register now to attend on Thursday, July 28th, and we will see you at the webinar.